Fight Commentary Breakdowns. This is Fight Commentary Chats. We have Sifu Michael, and not only does he run the Martial Arts Museum, which we will talk about, he's also an instructor of Monkey Kung Fu. In fact, some of you have seen one of those capoeira kicks that I combined with Kung Fu. That was taught through Hispanic Jerry, I call him, who is a student of Sifu Michael. So this is an interview that I've wanted to do for a very long time because Sifu Michael has inspired and influenced and taught me stuff without even knowing it. So welcome, Sifu Michael.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you for having me on.
Definitely. So, did you start your training with Monkey Kung Fu, or did you kind of stumble around a little bit?
Well, I stumbled around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I started, and I'm dating myself,
Mm-hmm.
the only art that was available was judo. That was really the only art. And then later, karate came, jujitsu, and then when I saw a guy doing kung fu, that was it. I wanted to do kung fu, and so I found a school, and I've been doing kung fu ever since. I did Shaolin Kung Fu, and then I did Monkey Kung Fu. So I've done it both.
Oh, okay. So it looks like you found Shaolin first.
Yes, And I dabbled, I did kickboxing, I did all that other stuff as well, Wing Chun and other stuff as well, Jeet Kune Do, but it was Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu that really motivated me, and I still enjoy that quite a bit. And then my friend started teaching me Monkey, and I've been doing Monkey for 45 years now, and I still teach it today.
Wow. Okay. So that's really funny. I've talked to a few other people who've also said back in the day, the thing that they thought about when they thought about martial arts was judo. Like, why was judo so big back in the day?
Well, judo was really the first art that was publicly brought here. Jiu-jitsu really came in the late 1800s, but Theodore Roosevelt was doing judo. So it was getting out there.
Oh.
So a lot of the diplomats, and they were trying to push judo in the Olympics and try to push judo in the schools. So judo got a lot of push from Jigoro Kano, the guy who made judo, and he was really pushing it like crazy. So that's why it was the most popular art. It was in the movies, Mr. Moto and all those guys all did judo. So that was very popular at the time.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, a good PR campaign, right, will help a lot of things. I mean, that's what made Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so popular. They had the PR campaign of the UFC. And Kung Fu, unfortunately, has had a very bad PR campaign these past 10 years because of, unfortunately, a lot of the unqualified instructors and people stepping up and getting beat up. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, Kung Fu has had the hardest time in America, even though it's the art scene in TV and film more than anything else, because it's so unique. It is the hardest time to have a martial arts school, because in America, most people don't like to be, Kung Fu takes time to learn. And in America, they want to learn everything very quickly. And the Kung Fu schools in America like to teach traditional. And when they do that, they don't get enough students, and it just doesn't happen. Like today, good luck finding a Kung Fu school. You can hardly find one today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So tell me about when you first started training Kung Fu. What was the training like?
Well, I actually first started when I was a kid, real small. My friend was teaching me, but I didn't get really into the commercial school till the 70s, the mid 70s. And I loved it. I loved it. It was hard. We were doing Southern style, Hungar. So the stances were low. The floor was all smooth cement. There's no mats back then, and you had to get down, and the teacher had a shinai, a bamboo stick, and he'd whack you if you didn't get your stances. That was all legal back then. And they would whack you, and you'd sweat so much, you'd slip all over the place. And I loved every part of it. Loved every part of it. We just worked out nonstop. I was there almost every day, and I went to beginner class, intermediate, and advanced every day just to get the workout in. So I loved it. I still love it today. I really enjoy Kung Fu. A different style of workout, but I really enjoy it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Definitely. And what that type of training, like Sifu Michael says, it takes time. But what it does is it builds this raw conditioning and strength in your body. Like, I call it like the Southern Kung Fu person body. Like, all of us have amazing calves. People are like, do we do 1,000 calf raises a day? No, it's from Kung Fu training. Like, I still have big calves from my Kung Fu days as a kid. So, like, that's a perfect example of Sifu Mike was talking about. Like, it takes time. It's not like, you go to a boxing Muay Thai gym, they could probably get you ready in the ring in a month, right? But, like, if you do traditional Kung Fu training, you're probably not going to be ready in the ring for a month, but some of the benefits will be a little bit farther out in life.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it's hard to sell that to people.
Oh, yeah. It's like in the horse stance, getting a low horse stance. You're building your calves, you're building your legs, you're building all that there, but they don't see that. They don't see that result because it takes a little while to build it. So after a while, when you do those kicks are hard. But it takes a while to build that strength and that stamina and all that by doing traditional Kung Fu training. It's hard for America to get its mind around it. They want the quick fix. And but Kung Fu, Kung Fu, I love Kung Fu. Kung Fu, it's a way of life. It's something that you can do till you're 90 or 100 years old. It's that part of you.
Yeah, exactly. So when you first stumbled on monkey kung fu, was it something that you were like, oh, this is cool? Or you're like, this is silly? Or is it kind of a little bit of both?
Interesting story. I was doing Hungar with Buxom Kong, and I was doing about 3 years. And in came this guy, and about my age, a little older, and we became very good friends. And he was behind. He just started, and so I would go to his house, which he was down the street, and I would train him so he'd catch up to me. So that way we can work out together, do all the same stuff together. So while we're doing this for a year or so, he said, hey, there's this guy that came to the college I'm at, and he says, my Kung Fu, I'm going to teach you some real Kung Fu. And he goes, okay, sure. So he started teaching him these moves. They didn't look like monkey at all. Didn't look like it because the beginning part doesn't look like it. And he goes, here, let me train you. I will teach you the moves I learned. And that's what he did. So after he learned from him, I learned from him. So every day we were out there training together. And again, the basics don't look like monkey Kung Fu. It doesn't take a while for you to actually see the monkey movements. So that doesn't come. So in the beginning, it just looked like another Kung Fu style. But later on, then we found out he never told us it was monkey. Then we found out it was monkey when we started doing the movements and all that. So it was very, very unique style, very interesting style. But in the beginning, it didn't look like monkey at all. Just looked like another Shaolin martial art form. But when we started getting into monkey techniques, then it was brought to life, and that was very exciting.
And I love how you described it. It's like the foundations, the fundamentals, it sort of all looks the same at the end of the day, right? Once you know how to fight and apply it, then you can add the flair. And I think that's where a lot of the quote unquote traditional styles go wrong, or the flair styles go wrong. They'll spend so much time teaching you the flair, but you don't fundamentally understand how to just fight in general. So it sounds like your education in monkey was very much, okay, let's learn the stuff that would not to the untrained eye look like anything else, and then we'll add the flair in.
Yeah. Monkey Kung Fu is a very unique form. I explain it this way. A monkey's in the jungle, okay? Monkeys in the jungle, a tiger comes into the colony of monkeys. There's no way the monkeys can defeat the tiger, period. It's not going to happen. So to get rid of the tiger, the monkeys run by and they whack the tiger as they go by, fast as they can. Another one whacks the tiger, and the tiger tries to get him, and they whacks him again. They keep whacking the tiger, so the tiger gets tired and leaves. That's kind of monkey Kung Fu. Monkey Kung Fu, you're not going to win the fight. Keep that in mind. So you need to do damage very quickly to get out of there. And that's the attitude with monkey Kung Fu. You're not just going one-on-one, because you're going to lose one-on-one. You got to get them by surprise, do some heavy techniques that will hurt them and damage them quickly, and then you're out of there. And that's what monkey Kung Fu is about.
Yeah, I love the deceptive element of it. And it makes sense why when I started doing capoeira, I was like, it seems like monkey Kung Fu can really, really be fused into it. Because
Oh
again,
yeah.
capoeira is all about, it looks like you're dancing. It looks like you're weak. You're on the ground. What? He's on the ground, but then they'll throw kicks from the ground. And then the move that you taught Jerry, that Jerry taught me, was all about you're on the ground, you're crouched down, but you jump up and you do a crazy kick to their face, right? Like lots of fusions. It's so interesting that, yes, fighting looks the same, but it also doesn't always look the same. It depends on the context. And with the context of what Sifu Michael's talking about, monkey kung fu, and with the context of capoeira, again, the intention, the context, that's why it leads to such cool flair.
Oh yeah, the kicks and all that stuff is very deceptive. That's the whole thing about monkey. It's got to be deceptive. It's got to be surprising, because again, you're going to lose. So you got to do what techniques are unique and and hard and powerful to get that person down. You want to bring them down to your territory. That way, all the low kicks that you practice, you can do it. It looks like Muay Thai in many ways. You're losing a lot of elbows, a lot of knees, all those damage points in monkey kung fu. And I think monkey kung fu would be great for some of these UFC fighters, especially when they're down on the ground, because they're wrestling and stuff. And I say, guys, your knees right there, your elbows right there. Here's some moves that you can do from monkey kung fu that would apply to that. And I think that'd be beneficial to the UFC and mixed martial arts.
I totally agree. And I believe the UFC, I don't know if it's UFC or other MMA organizations, have sort of changed some of the rules where finally, if the person has at least at least one hand on the ground, you couldn't knee in the face, right? That used to be the rule. I think they took it out recently. So
Okay.
people don't quote me on that, but I think because there's been too many complaints about that. So also, I believe 12 to 6 elbows are being allowed now. So the reason I mentioned this is because, especially back in the day when, like, you see some UFC fighters would do this, they would have a hand on the ground, and then they would sort of march towards, sort of almost like a monkey style, but because they knew the knees couldn't go to their face, it was sort of their hack, and then they would use it in a grappling position. But then in my mind, I'm like, if that rule favors you doing that, why don't you have the hands on the ground so they think you're going to go into a grapple and then do a monkey technique from there, exactly like what Sifu Mike says.
Oh yeah. I see some of these fights. They say, oh my God, use a knee right there. Use this room, move this way, and easy, you can do it. So much of the kicking in other martial arts are practiced standing up, and which is fine. But in monkey, we also both do it standing up and on the ground. That way you would build that strength in those legs. You could do a front kick, you could do a side kick, all from when you're on the ground or halfway on the ground. And that builds that strength. So the same thing when you're grappling down there, hey, you're at the right height to do a great kick right there, because now you got all that power in your legs. You got that stability, you got that strength right there, and you can use that. But they don't practice that. But it would be nice, because then when you're comfortable on the ground and you can do these front kicks and do these side kicks and do all these punches and stuff from being low to the ground, not necessarily on the ground, but low to the ground, you can utilize all that stuff. And that all works. Believe me, I had many, many students who do bodyguard work. They say, oh, Sifu Michael, that worked. I tried that technique. And I say, yes, it does. It all works. So
yeah, and I think that's a good segue, both to talk about you teaching and also what types of students usually take monkey class, I guess, is the first question that came to mind immediately.
Monkey Kung Fu is an advanced art. It is never designed to teach basics. You got to come in there and be a black belt already, because that's what it's not about. It's teaching you a different style, a different level of fighting. It's very, very much a fighting art, very much a fighting art. And it's very much an art. You have to train your body, because your body is not used to getting low. It's not used to walking like, almost crawling, sort of. I think they call it a duck walk or a turtle walk today, but staying low, that's all very difficult, because you're using muscles you've never used before, and you have to build those muscles so continually. So part of the monkey kung fu class, half of the class is just on training, rolling, moving, kicking, all the different techniques before we even get into anything else, before we even get into bag work or anything. It's conditioning the body, making it comfortable. It's like Muhammad Ali being able to move back and forth. Well, it took him a while to learn how to move back and forth. The same thing with monkey. You're learning all these movements that your body needs to get used to, your muscles need to get used to move around. And then once you're comfortable, then everything else is easy.
Yeah, and I will totally add something that Sifu Michael said, that I think because of our modern lifestyle, a lot of times we don't realize what our bodies are capable of. When I was doing capoeira, capoeira was on the wooden floor too, right? We didn't do it on mats. And so I started getting really bad tendonitis on my foot, to the point where I had to get an x-ray because the doctor was like, are you sure you don't have a stress fracture? Especially she looked at how much the toes were extended and stuff like that. And in Monk and Kung Fu, there's similar types of positions. But it turns out it was just tendonitis. And then all I had to do was learn how to use my bare foot and learn how to build muscle. People don't know there's a lot of muscles in your feet and your ankle area, etc. So once I did that, I was able to do capoeira, and then my foot became so strong. And then a lot of times I climb mountains with my bare foot. You know why? Our ancestors did that. Our ancestors walked miles. Our ancestors ran miles in barefoot. And it's like, what I love about studying some of these arts that maybe is different than the standard modern MMA paradigm is that you get to really, I wouldn't even call it push your body. It's like return your body to what it was naturally capable of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that in Monkey Kung Fu, people always say, don't your knees hurt? Doesn't it damage your knees? And if you're trained right, not at all. Why? Because we're changing the dynamics of your stretching. Instead of bending the knee, okay, and causing the damage here, what you do is here's your foot and you bend your ankle. So you are creating the flexibility in your ankle so there's no pressure whatsoever on your knee. So the more you can bend your ankle, the better it will be. And that way your stance will get better, you'll get lower, and you won't have. I've never had a problem with my knee and doing it for 45 years, ever. So it's learning those dynamics, because if you're not training it correctly, you're going to damage your knee quite a bit and say, oh, I hate being low to the ground. Well, I've never hated being low to the ground because I knew how to make my ankles so flexible that it didn't matter. It just lowered the ankle and never had stress on the knee. So all these different techniques, Monkey Kung Fu, when it came to America, came as a fighting art. It was a big contest, US versus Hong Kong back in 1976. And there was a group of Chan Sao Chung's guys, I was there, fighting full contact against the American group. And that's how monkey was introduced. And of course, all the monkey fighters won. But it was very powerful, full contact art, which I'm very glad to teach today.
So let's talk about when you decided to start teaching. Was it a very spontaneous journey or was it pretty abrupt? Tell me about that.
Well, I love teaching. And I was teaching Hungar. And I was teaching Hungar already. Yeah, I was just a teenager learning Hungar. And after about 2 years, I was still studying. And I started teaching at high school and started teaching so teaching was already there in my blood. So when I started doing monkey, teaching just became natural. But I didn't start teaching monkey until I had at least 10 years in monkey before I taught anybody monkey. I was still teaching Hungar, Shaolin all those years. So once I felt I was comfortable enough, I started bringing on students. But I kept it very limited because I just wanted a handful of students. I didn't want a big classroom full. Because monkey is, again, it's a very difficult art. Most people don't last, don't have the stamina to do it. So I have to look for people who are going to last and going to do it and take it seriously. And rather than, put my time into other people that are just going to flake out after a month or two. And by the way, in the old monkey class where I was taught, most new students lasted a month.
Wow.
They lasted a month. A few lasted a couple of years, but that was it. I'm the only one that lasted, 40 years or more.
Wow.
That's it. But everybody, it was just too difficult for them. They just couldn't take it after a while. They just left. So it's a big high turnover in monkey. Not everybody likes to be low to the ground, and especially if you're not taught how to do it, you don't enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Have you found your teaching style has changed over the years? Have you added anything, removed anything?
Well, I have combined two things. The original art, monkey style taught by Chan Sao Chung, was a very powerful full contact style of training. A lot of bag kicking, a lot of, hard hitting, a lot of stuff working out for the ring. when I learned, the guy who learned it in the same lineage was more of a performer. He liked to do more performance, forms, weapons, and all that, which is great as well. And so I had to kind of combine both of them. Uh, my instructor didn't like the full contact, but I did. So I kept with the original guy who was before us, and from his training, I took all the full contact stuff, and then took all my friends' the performance stuff, and I put them both together. So it's monkey, the whole monkey system in reality right there, both the kickboxing, the full contact, and the forms and the weapons and all that in one. So
Dude, I
I
love
kind of
it.
put it back to its original form. In other words, that's what I did.
Yeah, yeah. And even just from anyone interested in martial arts, sometimes you need to have some of the performance stuff, right? Like part of it, yes, is learn to defend yourself, but come on, part of it is also be able to express yourself sometimes in a non-fighting. Like that's why
Exactly.
that's why like Kung Fu, despite all the flack it's taken, that's why it had its golden age of like the taolu, as you say in Mandarin, the katas, the forms, whatever you call it. It's because that was just dance expression. And it's just like people who take on dance. It's like it's really powerful for the body to be able to move in a certain way, even if it's like, okay, well, obviously I'm not using this in a fight, but who cares? Like I'm moving in a cool way.
Yeah, look at again back to Muhammad Ali. He had to learn that footwork. He had to learn how to maneuver back and forth. That's sort of like a form. You're having to learn it. You may not do the same movements, but you're having to learn all that. So a lot of the forms is the same thing. You're learning how to put those, learning how to be smooth, connecting to each other, and how these things all apply. You're obviously not going to use some of those movements from a form in a fight, but now you have the flexibility to use whatever you want when you're doing, that's why I took kickboxing as well. I went and learned from Cecil People's kickboxing and learn how to fight, learn to get in the ring, learn all that. So that way I had the feeling of being whacked in the face and hit hard, and getting that full contact feeling by learning. And I encourage people to do that, to spread out, learn a little stuff here and there. That way you can kind of add it to your unique style.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is a good time to talk about the martial arts museum. So again, everyone, Sifu Michael runs the martial arts museum. So tell me about the origin of that.
Yeah, the museum, I run a martial arts history museum. We are the only one in the world. And isn't that, I think it's a sad thing, but I think it's a good thing that we have one finally. Doing the martial arts, and I'm going to date myself, sorry, since 67, martial arts in America is not that old. Bong Han came here, Fumio Demura came here, Hyo Cho came here. All these people came to America in the 60s and the 70s. And growing up in the martial arts, I got to meet everybody. I got to see everybody. I saw Gene LeBell fight in the ring.
Wow.
I saw Chuck Norris when he was just a competitor. I saw all these guys, Eric Lee, when he was just a competitor. So I grew up seeing these people who would later become these legends of the martial arts. I saw them personally. I knew them personally. I talked to them personally. So this was all part of me growing up. So I was part of it, I was part of this whole thing. It's like you were there when you're Steve Jobs and you're building the computer, you see the parts, you see the stuff. So to me, it was the same thing. I saw the guys breaking bricks and the guys doing samurai sword on somebody's neck and accidentally cutting their neck or something like that. Or, all these crazy things I saw over the years growing up. So it was always part of me. And when I was bullied, the martial arts helped me, so which inspired me even more. But having everything around me and knew all that, I decided to work for the magazines because I wanted to write about these guys. So I worked for Black Belt and Inside Kung Fu as a freelance editor for like 20 years. So I did all that. In the meantime, I said, the magazines aren't doing justice to these guys, because all these guys in the magazines weren't even martial artists. They were just writers. And I said, I'm a martial artist. So I said, I'm going to start my own magazine, which I did. In 1983, I started Martial Art Magazine. And it was great because I had all the tools. I went to school already to learn how to do it. And I started doing that. But unfortunately, I kept getting ads for tournament fighting, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to do history. So when someone made me an offer and says, I want to buy your magazine, after 4 years or 5 years, I said, sold. I sold the magazine and I said, I'm going to do something that keeps our history alive. I want to make something, and I think a museum would be perfect. And that's what I said. Okay, around 1988, I decided I'm going to do a museum, but I knew nothing about doing a museum. So I had to go back to college for another 8 years, get a degree in business, went to the American Film Institute to learn how to do editing and producing and directing, learn how to do design, learn how to do everything you can think of to put a museum together. I went back to school for. Once I felt I got it all, then in 1999, I launched the museum.
Wow. Okay. So
That's a quick
1999.
nutshell.
Wow. Okay.
But you
Yeah.
know, go ahead,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
You know, when I started in 1999, I talked to everybody, all these icons I knew, because I had interviewed them as well. So we had a good relationship. So when I talked to them, I said, hey, I want to take the museum as a traveling exhibit, take it all over the place, but I need items, because they all knew me. Here, Michael, here's my uniform. Here's my lion dancing thing. Here's my this. So I was borrowing everything from everybody because they knew me. And so I was taking it on the road with me. So that kind of started the museum. And because I had this relationship with all these people growing up, they knew me and trusted me. So that helped me get the museum started.
Yeah, and just to let viewers know, I told Sifu Michael this when I officially connected with him again, but I actually met him in 2014, I believe,
Oh,
because I was
really?
in LA briefly, and I was his museum used to be near the Disney lot. So I was just one day on the Disney lot. I was doing sort of an internship, and I was like, there's a martial arts museum. So I ran over there during my lunch break and I met him. And I told him, because at that point I hadn't started fight commentary breakdowns. I hadn't started any martial arts videos. I was like, dude, I used to be a martial artist. I'm going to get back into it one day. And you know what? I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm so glad I stumbled on you. And I want to get you on my channel one day. And Sifu Michael's like, yeah, dude, I encourage you. And Michael, let me check out the museum for free, because I only had like 5 minutes anyways. He's like, yeah, just go and wander in there. And I did. I ran around in there. And then I said, dude, one day we'll be in touch. And then lo and behold, years later, I find out from, I call him Hispanic Jerry, but Geraldo, I found out that he was training under Sifu Michael. And I put two and two together. I'm like, oh, look at that. The seed that was planted, it paid off. I was going to reconnect with him. Look at this. It's 10 years later, man. 10 years later.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So look at what his museum did. It inspired someone. Like, I'm sure if I didn't stumble on Sifu Michael and I didn't know that there was someone as passionate about martial arts that created a museum, maybe I would have never created fight commentary breakdowns. I'm telling you. So thank you, Sifu Michael.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I am so thrilled that the museum has inspired people. I really do. And that's what it's about. We used to be dependent on the magazines. There were tons of martial arts magazines out there, but the internet has gobbled them all up, period. So there's no more martial arts magazines in America at all, period, either online or whatever you can find. So, having a museum, we now have a place that's a home of the martial arts where we can have events, we can meet new people, see who's out there. The museum does a lot more than just, I love the history that the martial arts has. And I love having the uniforms of the pioneers here at the museum. And I'm so thankful growing up with people like, Fubio Dimura and, all these other guys, that they were so generous to give me their uniform that they had in the old days. And I said, try to give me your original. And they do. And we have them here on display. And a lot of them are passed away, but we have their memory right there for everybody to see. So I am so thrilled to have this place that we can talk about martial arts history and enlighten people about, what the arts are about and how it comes from different countries. And there's Hawaiian arts and there's capoeira and there's, all these different types of art forms that nobody knew about. Most people know there's karate and kung fu or maybe jujitsu, and that's it. But here they get enlightened to learn about stuff. We have a lot of couples that come, a lot of couples, and the girlfriend comes with the husband or boyfriend, and they go, okay, I'll come with you. And he's all excited when he gets in here. But at the end, who's more excited? It's the girls more excited because, wow, I didn't know it had that, and I didn't know it had this, and oh, that was so interesting. And she's more excited at the end than the guy is, which is kind of cool. So I think the museum is a wonderful way to inspire people to connect with our past, with our present, and see how martial arts has evolved and how it's affected our films and TV and animation and games and all that. And once they get a handle of that, oh, that's how it began. Oh, that's how it started. Or that's how it's connected. And everybody, oh, the lion dancing is part of it, and the taiko drums, and all this is all connected. People see it all in a whole new light, which I'm very glad people do.
Exactly. And I think the last topic we'll talk about Dragonfest. But before we talk about Dragonfest, besides Dragonfest, in the future, are you planning for the museum to have a lot more events too?
Yes, the museum has 3 events a month.
Oh,
We do a
wow.
lot of events, sometimes 4. We have book signings. We have movie screenings where all the stars are here. So we had Kung Pao movie with the entire cast here. We had a lot of movies. We're having Best of the Best with the cast here coming up.
Oh,
We have, Big Trouble coming up. And we have other independent films where they're all here and they'll do a red carpet and it'll be a big thing. And then we do honor days where we honor individuals. We have Hall of Fame ceremonies. We have art exhibits. And we have a new room that we're launching here, our rotating exhibit room. And that way we can have Star Wars. We can have Cobra Kai uniforms. We have pirates. We can have whatever we have. We could even have Otani's outfits from the Dodgers or something like that on display for a short time. So we have a lot of stuff always going on at the museum to keep people coming. We have game night, we have poker night, we have just movie night, and all these different things to keep people coming back to the museum. So we're always doing events here, and I think that's what brings people together. We were doing a show for El Rey Network, and of course from there they found someone they wanted as a co-host from someone here at the museum, which I'm very glad to say, since we do a lot of stuff for movies, the directors and producers all come to the museum. When we were in Burbank, we had the Disney Channel, always Walt Disney Productions come by. We had Nickelodeon come by. We had all those Warner. Everybody come by to get ideas, for their stuff. Matter of fact, Moana, the Hawaiian one, they got from our museum. They look at it, saw all the stuff, and they said, "Hey, that's pretty good." They asked me all about it, and that would kind of spark them to do Moana. So they get excited and they want to learn about it, and the studios send their people. And I'm very glad that we have been able to provide jobs by people connecting here at the museum because we do a lot of film and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes so much sense because obviously I discovered you guys when I was on the lot, right? So like I'm sure, yeah, that's awesome. Dude, that just makes my day. So yeah, for those of you, I will put a trailer to Moana too. For those of you outside of America who haven't seen Moana, I'll put a trailer.
Oh yeah, one of the things we're introducing coming up is a series. We are bringing some well-known directors and stuff and artists and stuff, and we're having a seminar series. They would come for like 3 hours, and 1 hour would be a big name director teaching, and then after that would be one of the producers how to get your film on the market, how to put it out there, and then after that we're doing a meetup connection so everybody can connect. So we're going to be launching a series of something for films, something for business, and a series of those so people can get to know each other. And acting, who's get an accomplished actor here and teach, here's how to get in the business. And then someone would come, here's a producer, here's how you sell yourself. So these series of classes, we're going to be introducing those next year.
Dude, I love it. I am so excited. And I think this is a perfect final topic. Let's talk about Dragonfest. So how did you get into Dragonfest and / where is Dragonfest going? And also, guys, I will be at Dragonfest. Same with Sifu Michael. So we'll see you guys there if you guys are coming to Dragonfest. But yeah, let's talk about Dragonfest.
But Dragonfest is the coolest event ever. Not that the museum's not great, but Dragonfest was started, it was started about, maybe 30 years ago. Jiro Okamura is a martial artist, Kung Fu artist, and he started, says, hey, let's get some people together on some tables and introduce them, some stars. And it started out as a little small room. You could walk around in 5 minutes and see all of Dragonfest. And he did that every year, and it started getting bigger and bigger, and he got a bigger place and bigger and bigger. And he did that for 9 years. And after 9 years, it kind of hit its plateau, and he stopped it. He stopped doing it. And then 10 years went by, there was nothing at all. So when we started the museum, everybody kept bugging me, Michael, bring back Dragonfest, bring back Dragonfest. And I said, I fought it for a few years. And I said, okay, I'm going to bring back Dragonfest. So I called Jiro Kimura, and he says, you have my blessing. You have my blessing, go for it. And so I said, okay, but if we're going to bring it back, we're going to bring it back as part of the museum. We're going to, benefit the museum. So 100% of the proceeds go to the museum. But we're going to make it a huge level. We're going to have performances all day on stage. We're going to have 100 vendor booths. And then we're going to have seminars where you can work out with the icons like Benny Urquidez and Don Wilson. So that was it. That's how we launched it. And right away, everybody came back that was there 10 years ago. They said, Dragonfest is back, including Jiro Kimura, including everybody. All the stars gave of their time, freely gave of their time, and still today. And now it's just a phenomenal event. We have 100 booths with everything you can think of, from Hawaiian weapons to, props to, kids stuff or anime stuff and all that. We have a workout with Benny the Jet Urquidez, Don Wilson, all those pioneers. We have on stage performances from well-known Asian traditional groups on stage, especially this year. And then we have cosplayers all over the place. It is a gathering of the greatest stars in the martial arts. They all fly in from everywhere, and you see everybody say, oh my God, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so. Fumio Demura has been there before he passed away, Bill Ryusaki, all these pioneers who have gone now, but they were all part of Dragonfest all these years. So I am thrilled with Dragonfest. It is our funnest event of the year. It is a blast. I can't get enough of it. We have so many people. We're talking almost 3,000 people coming to Dragonfest, and every year it gets bigger and bigger, and I'm just very excited about it. But if you haven't been, you need to go, because it is, kids are free, 17 and under. Adults, $50, but it all goes to the museum. 100% is tax deductible. But it is your opportunity to meet and greet with these stars up close. You can meet Cynthia Rothrock and talk with Cynthia for a while, or some of these other stars are there. So it's a very exciting event. It's coming up August the 3rd at the Glendale Civic Auditorium. That's this Saturday. And it's a lot of work to put together, but it is well worth it. The whole day, people come in at 11 o'clock when it opens, and it closes at 5, and they stay the whole day because it's pretty exciting to go to.
Yeah, and Glendale in general is a really cool area in the LA County. So, for anyone that's never been to Glendale, it's just, every time I go to Glendale, I love it. So, yeah, people just seriously consider coming to this, man. Anyone in the LA area, because the majority of my American audience, I believe 30% of my American audience is in California. So, people in California, probably there's a lot of SoCal people too, right? Yeah, come and meet Sifu Michael. We can, I'm sure Sifu Michael will be busy, but, if you catch him on an off time, ask him about Kung Fu, ask him about Monkey. I'm very excited. And, it's going to be so fun, and it's going to be an honor to have a booth there. So, again, I really appreciate the invite, Sifu Michael. And then we'll have a lot of fun Saturday. Potentially, I told Sifu Michael this. I might do this. I don't know. But maybe I'll live stream also that day. I'll live stream a little bit. So for anyone that wants to, obviously we want you there in person, right? But for people halfway across the world, maybe you catch a little live stream or something. We'll see. Cool. So anyways, if I don't live stream and get Sifu Michael back on Saturday, we'll definitely do more interviews either way. So,
wonderful. Yeah,
I think this will be so cool. We got so much to talk about. And something that in the future we could do too, because I do like to find monkey kung fu stuff online. I could give Sifu Michael, I'd be like, okay, Sifu Michael will tell us his expert opinion on this. You know, like that could be something we feature you in future in video. So if you're down for that, I would love to get you as like a guest expert commentator, especially if we find Tai Sheng Pek Kwar, as I say in Mandarin, but the Tai Sheng Pek Kwar, as they say, you know, if you read it in its Cantonese form, I would love to get your opinions on whatever stuff I find in the future.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, cool. So I think this was a perfect stopping point, and we will have a lot more to come. So everyone, Sifu Michael Matsuda, and again, Martial Arts History Museum, Dragonfest, a lot of other